So welcome to the latest episode of the comically named Talking Balls podcast, which is linked to the Snooker 19 PlayStation League. And well, I'm chuffed, really chuffed to have one of the real big names in the game, somebody who I think you'll all know. A lot of our members of our league are big fans, and we're excited to hear that Joe was coming on. So it's a big welcome, really, to Joe Perry.
How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, really good. And thanks, as I say, thanks a lot for coming on. So, well, we'll see where this goes, but it'd be good just to find out a little bit, Joe, just about your background, kind of, why you chose snooker, your inspiration. So think back to those early days, really, as to how you got involved.
I don't know if my story is sort of similar to most sort of people of my age, but when I was sort of younger, like, before the age of 10, snooker was massive. It was on the TV all the time. Yeah. All the players were household names. My dad, without ever being a player, was a real big fan. He was never really into football or anything like that, and he loved watching the snooker on the telly. And he said I was just fascinated. Every time it come on the TV, I was sort of fascinated by it. So they bought me a little table, like a little 5-foot table, just stick on top of the box for Christmas one year. And that's where it all began, really. He said, every morning they would wake up to the sound of balls being hit round and hitting pockets and things. And they could see I sort of took an instant love to it. And then as soon as I was tall enough, he took me to a full-size table in a club in London. And then it just grew and grew and grew. And then obviously as you sort of progress and you start to get better, it just developed from there, really. And I realised from a young age that was all I ever wanted to be, was a professional snooker player.
Did anyone inspire you in terms of, you obviously that was the time when snooker was all over the TV, wasn't it? And we obviously had big characters around. Was there anyone you looked up to and made you want to play?
Yeah, my first real memory of watching it on the TV was Jimmy White losing in the final in '84 to Davis. And that was, so Jimmy White was always my sort of, snooker hero. Yeah, I wish, even though I've got great respect for Jimmy and we've had some laughs over the years, we're good friends now. I wish Steve Davis had been my inspiration, because John Higgins and Ronnie O'Sullivan and people like that, they all looked up to Davis, and they've gone on to be great winners. I was like a Jimmy fan, and I suppose that sort of reflects a little bit in my career, sort of come close a few times.
And you mentioned Davis. I mean, wasn't Davis kind of involved in your Crucible debut, looking back?
Yeah, and whenever I'm asked of my most memorable match, that will be it.
Yeah.
And I think for all that Steve's won, he's got a glittering career and one of Britain's greatest ever sportsmen. When I'd done a bit of recent punditry for the BBC at the World Championship, in between the cameras not rolling, he spoke to me about it. We was did he? Guest of Hazel Irvine that afternoon, and he's still fond in his memory. It still hurts him, so that's a real feather in my cap. But that is probably my. Even though I've won a couple of tournaments, won a big one, Masters final and stuff. I think my debut, the way it all panned out at the Crucible, is my greatest sort of memory match, really.
Yeah. And how did it live up to? Did you know what to expect? I mean, that's an odd question. No, I don't know how many players sort of have this sort of mindset, but I went to watch the World Championship. I had tickets to sit in the arena and stuff, but even though I never ever went, I could have gone backstage, could have got, guest sort of entry and whatever, gone and sat in the players' lounge, but it was something I made a conscious effort not to do until I actually qualified. And I got beat to I got to the final qualifying round 3, maybe 4 times and got beat every time. So it was really disappointing. It's a horrible match to lose when you haven't been there. But no, I made a conscious effort to, experience it as a player, not as a guest. And I was glad I'd done that, because it really did live up to all the expectations. How does it feel? I mean, this is going to be a bit anarchy, I'm afraid, Joe, with some of the questions, because we're talking as fans, talking to pros who know what it's like. This is your life. This is what you've done for a while. So, but these are questions that we don't get to ask ourselves. We play on a PlayStation game, and we feel competition and pressure and all of that, but we don't have crowds, and when we sit down and the opponent's clearing up, we can go and have a coffee and then come back and hopefully they're finished. You guys are perched there, aren't you? I mean, it must be so different, but I mean, how does that feel? So the thing of having the fans there, and think about the Crucible, but also since the fans are there, you're on the spot, you're in the spotlight, aren't you, really? And when you're sat down, you can't affect the other player, which is different to a lot of sports like tennis and things where you're always interacting, aren't you?
Yeah. No, it's still, a snooker would never, unless you're a big snooker fan, I don't think snooker would ever be regarded as one of the most toughest sports out there. But for me, it is. I'm biased, obviously, but from a mental standpoint, it's got to be the toughest sport you can ever play. Because we played golf the other day at the World Snooker Golf Day, and we was talking to the pro, and we said to him, like, you play a bad shot, you can follow it with a great shot, and you probably win the hole. So we play a bad shot, we've got to suffer. And going back to like the Crucible that time. My debut, it couldn't have gone any better. First session, I think I made a century, one of the few, they do it all the time now. The standard's gone through the roof. But back then, there was only like a handful of players that ever made a century on their debut. I was one of them. It was going great. I won the first session 7-2, loving it. Didn't know what all the fuss was about, the Crucible. But then day 2, Steve come back, and it was the most horrible place I'd ever been in.
Yeah.
The other table finished, the screen went up, and it was like 9-7 at the time to me. And I just completely froze. Steve was strutting his stuff all of a sudden, like, he was like 7 foot tall, walking around the table the way he did. And I just felt like I shouldn't be here with him. He's a legend. I'm just a young kid. I shouldn't be on this table with him. And that's how he made me feel.
Right.
And that's the dynamics of snooker, the pressure. The first day, just wanted to show everyone what I could do. The next day, I didn't really want to come to the table in case I'd fluffed it. So it's a tough place mentally.
Has that changed now, like interactions with players? Because I don't know, but judging from how Steve Davis came across, it felt as if he was quite almost not isolated, but it didn't feel like you could have a lot of a chat with him and almost take the veil of invincibility away from him. Is that changed, or do you still get players who are like that on the tour?
Yeah, it's a good question, because we have these conversations a lot lately, and there's a lot of talk in snooker at the moment about the amateur game and how where it's going and what's happened to it. But I think there's a lot of reasons for that. When I was sort of making progress and climbing up the rankings, I never got to see Steve Davis, Stephen Hendry, even though I knew who they were, John Parrott. I never got to see them unless I got right deep in a tournament and managed to qualify. Then I could see them in the players, and then I'd be so in awe of them and intimidated. I'd want to watch them practice and stuff. But just lately, like since 2010, since the PTC's come about, these kids and like wannabe professionals, amateurs, they mix with us day in, day out. They're in our players' lounge, they're on our practice tables. They see us all the time. So I think that's changed big time. The first time I sort of come across Steve Davis was when we sort of shook hands to play a first round match of the World Championship. And that's quite intimidating. Whereas now, they're all on first name terms with us. A lot of them, they're on their WhatsApping us, asking us for games and stuff like that. We never done that when we were younger. We had to sort of earn their respect and earn the opportunity to play them.
Yeah. And I know you like your football, don't you? I think you're an Arsenal fan, aren't you?
Well, I don't like it as much as I did that 2003-04, but
right,
I'm still a big Arsenal fan.
Yeah. But I think there's a parallel from what you just said. I listen to some football podcasts, and they say they're about the youngsters coming through from in almost the academy system, and then they're getting in with the first team, and there's almost no mystique between them, whereas it used to be they would wash the kit and clean the boots for the senior pros, and then they'd have to almost be initiated. But now it's like that whole veil is dropped, and also they're not even fully proven yet, but they're earning big money, and almost they don't see the big gulf between them and the seniors. It sounds similar in a way without the money, perhaps.
It's quite a good dynamic, really. It sort of makes sense. It's sort of similar sort of thing. But and in the long term, and I think we're seeing proof of that now, I don't think it's done any good.
Right.
Great to have them opportunities. It's great to play Neil Robertson in round 1 of the Poland Open PTC, but is it actually that good? Because I don't see many of them guys that had the opportunity coming through, whether it takes a bit of hunger away, because they've already played their hero on TV.
Yeah.
I had to get to, I think I got qualified for the last 16 of an event before I played Stephen Hendry.
Yeah.
And then I was literally like rubbing the headlights. So I remember I lost 5-1. I couldn't even like stand up. I just wanted to keep asking for his autograph rather than beat him. And that's sort of gone out the game. So it's definitely got its positives, but I think there's a few more negatives than positives.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess in a way that's also harder to progress, isn't it? As a player coming through, if you're playing a top man in the early stages, good chance you're not going to go very far.
Yeah, that's another debate, you know, that's constantly going on. They thought having an open plan system where everyone starts in round one would benefit the lower ranked players, but you know, me and a few of my pals, sort of a bit wiser in the head, we knew that was perfect for us. You know, I wasn't in favour of it. I think there should be a tiered system. I think you earn the right to be seeded.
Yeah.
You know, it's not easy to climb the rankings. We're not just given a number and that's your seeding. You know, you earn it. But ultimately, I think it's probably helped the likes of myself more than it has the newer pros coming on tour. It's given me, without being disrespectful, you know, a sort of breeze through the first few rounds, which is all you really need to do to sort of tread water in the ranking list. If you want to progress, you've got to win tournaments. But if you want to just stay around the sort of somewhere in the top 32, just picking up a few matches every tournament is good enough.
Yeah, yeah. And that was something talking to Oliver actually, as you know, he's kind of in his mid-20s, isn't he? And I think he was finding it hard to see where the wave of young English players are coming through to almost succeed the generation at the top now. And he talked about China being a bit of a hotbed, but he I think, not to say he was negative about it, but I think he was concerned about the future for the game in this country and youngsters coming through to topple the big guns. I mean, is that something you share?
Oh yeah, he's right to be concerned. You know, it's a concern for a lot of us. And you know, I'm sort of coming to the end of my career, I would say, at like performing at a high level. I'm still sort of ranked high, but you know, you'd have to say my best days are behind me. A lot of that's to do with like my commitment to practice is sort of starting to wane now after all these years. But I want to continue to watch snooker. You know, as I get old, I love it. If I get knocked out of the tournament, I'll come home and I'll watch the matches on TV. So I'll continue to watch snooker. But it would be nice, you know, to watch some new stars coming through from the UK. But nothing against the Chinese players; they're amazing. But predominantly, snooker has sort of like been a UK-based game. And if China do take over, and we're just watching just a selection of Chinese players battling out for every single tournament, I think it's going to be a bit of a tougher watch.
Yeah, yeah, and it's hard to identify, isn't it, if you haven't got almost some. And this is, as you say, it's not about being funny about where people are from, but it's more about the inspiring people you can look up to who are maybe local, or you know, a lot of the players got into the game because of family or people they knew in their area. So it is that concern, isn't it? And it almost feels like there's a peak where people can get to, but it's hard to see who's going to get into that top group, really.
It seems a simple solution from my own point of view, you know, how I got into snooker and what was available when I was younger. But obviously times have changed a lot since the late 80s and 90s. You know, there's a lot more for people to do now. There's not a snooker club in every town. You know, they're few and far between. A lot of the snooker clubs have gone down the academy route, which, you know, depending on your personality, isn't always appealing. You know, I don't think I would have been suited to an academy when I was younger. You know, I loved the snooker club environment and everything it brought. You know, the characters that come in, and there'd always be like, you know, it's probably not something to be proud of, but like fruit machines and card games and stuff like that going on. You know, it was a gregreat place to be, and a great place to grow up and sort of mature, really. So the clubs are not really like that anymore. So, you know, I was like addicted to the snooker club. I couldn't wait to get up in the morning and go down there. But, you know, to go to an academy every day, you've got to be pretty dedicated and pretty like single-minded. And I don't know, maybe that's something to do with it. But I think there's a lot of good people involved in snooker at the moment, and they've all sort of, I think this last Q school has opened a lot of people's eyes. And I think they're going to start to pay some attention to what we've just been talking about. You know, where's the future? Where are they coming from? And I think you'll see some changes soon. You know, we're going to sort of try and make an effort to change things.
Yeah, and do you get, you know, as a senior player, do you get an input into that in terms of, you know, the thinking around how the game is structured and the formats? Do you get a say in that? Do you get a chance to influence it?
Well, there's various little things going on. You know, I was on the Players Commission for, I don't know, about 10 years, and then I've applied to the board a couple of times. I've just narrowly missed out a couple of times. I've been on I was on the Players Commission, which was just recently formed. I'm maybe going to be getting involved with the sort of, as I didn't make the board this year, I might start talking to English amateur board, and just seeing if I can like just help out, because like I say, snooker's been my life. You know, it's given me a good life. I feel like I owe something back, and it's something I want to be involved in. You know, whether that's in a paid capacity or not, I don't know. But if I could have some input, you know, use all the experience I've got and what I've learned over the years, then I'd be more than happy to sort of like, you know, pass it on.
Yeah, and well, and the authorities would be foolish not to take you up on that one. I'm just thinking, Joe. I mean, I feel like we're only just getting going, and we're just kind of getting to the time where I might have to wrap it. But would you? I wonder if you'd be happy for us to do almost a part 2 and add to this, because we're getting into some good stuff, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm available. I'm going to go.
So welcome back then. Welcome back to part 2, really. It's the second half. We've had the oranges at half time and cups of tea and what have you. And as you can see, Joe's moved rooms. So Joe, you've got quite an elaborate setup there by the looks of things.
Yeah, it's something to be honest, I'd rather practice at the club. I've still got my table at the club, but during lockdown and stuff, and also getting to my sort of age and my stage in my career, that the 45-minute commute to Cambridge every day was becoming a bit of a chore, and I found that I probably wasn't putting enough hours in. So we took the decision to sort of like turn the sort of spare room, double garage, if you like, into a sort of snooker room for me. So yeah, it comes in handy. I want to this year I want to get back to the club a lot more, start playing the majority of my practice at the club, because I do feel it's a better environment. You sort of in a better place headway to in a club rather than your own room. But it's nice to have.
Yeah, do you get people round, you know, good players round to give you a proper challenge, a bit like sparring for boxers?
Well, a few, unfortunately, like where I live, there's not many like real decent amateurs. There's a few, you know, that love to play, but I suppose if I'm like in this sort of mode at the moment, where I'm just sort of trying to get my game going again, I haven't played for a few months, it's ideal. But come the season, I like to be playing like a sort of higher standard of player. There's a few players that have been down, like sort of stop off on their way to a tournament. Milton Keynes was good because they were sort of like, it was only a like slight diversion to come to give me a game on the way to Milton Keynes. So we done that when we could and when we was allowed, but mostly it's on my own. Yeah,
no, it's a good facility to have, really, isn't it? I think you're going to be the envy now of most of the people on the group who are in our league, who will see this and go, that's what I'm going to do next. That's the big project. Get the extension done and get a table in. And it takes you right back, doesn't it, to when you were a kid and you had this small table that you got, and that got you interested, and now you've gone full circle now and you've got the big one. Yeah, no, it is nice. You know, I do like appreciate what, you know, snooker's given me, and to have the opportunity to just even be able to, you know, build a room and put a professional setup in here is, you know, it shows like a lot of the hard work and reward I've had out of the game, and also it's just nice, you know, when we come to sell the house, it's a good selling point. You know, it's a lovely room, it's all fully air conditioned and everything, so yeah, it's a great little spot. Brilliant. Have you got room for a bar in there, or was that pushing it a bit? No, I chose not to go down that route. I wanted to keep it purely like as an office. Whoever buys the house next, if they want to take the full-size table out and put like a 3/4 in or a pool table, then there's ample room to like put a bar and make it a real like entertainment space. But for me, I didn't want the kids coming over and like having a jolly. There's no machines in here or anything, so it's at the moment it's purely an office. Right. No, it's good office. I think we're all envious now. And you were saying just before the break, really, we were kind of just talking about, you know, the way the game was going for people coming through, and it was, I think you reflected on the fact that you're playing against top players in the early rounds, and you were thinking about actually that might take the hunger about for some youngsters coming through. What about your journey? I mean, some of the guys who actually commented were saying they felt you've been getting better as you've got older, and we had this whole conversation on the WhatsApp about age of players. Do you find it easier as you get older in some ways, or harder in other ways? I don't know. I think the timing of Barry Hearn coming back into snooker really coincided with the generation of my era all of a sudden looking like we've become better players all of a sudden. You know, we went from a few tournaments where we was up against it, you know, I'm no like, I'm a realist, you know, I know that
people like John Higgins and people like that, they're a level above me. You know, I can beat them. Of course I can. I have beaten them, but they're a level above. So to play like 6-7 tournaments a year and come up against one of them in the last 16, it's so hard to get anywhere. But then when Barry Hearn come in and he just threw all these snooker tournaments at us, you know, every week we all got a chance to shine, and we all got a chance to really like up our sort of match game. We played far more matches. You know, I had some good seasons back in like the early 2000s, and I think I only probably played about 20 matches, but I had a really good season, you know, like sort of like up in the top 16 sort of thing. But once Barry come along, you know, we found we was playing like 50, 60 matches a year and stuff like that.
Wow,
you know? It just sharpened everyone up. And the players like myself, Mark Davis, Mark King, you know, Ali Carr, Stuart Bingham even, it really gives us all a chance to just sort of maybe fulfill a bit more potential. It seems weird when we're like in our mid-30s, early 30s, but it really did give us a chance to sort of maybe fulfill the potential that we sort of showed years gone by.
Yeah. And how do you feel about the change now? I mean, obviously Barry Hearn's kind of stepped back really recently, hasn't he? I mean, do you get a feel for where it might go next?
Hopefully onwards and upwards. You know, COVID's put a big dampener on it. You know, it's same with all walks of life. But, you know, hopefully China come back. That's been a real, like, kick in the teeth, really, probably for China as well as the UK. You know, that was a real thriving area. We was due to go to Saudi Arabia, you know, a new territory, a massive tournament. I know there was lots of, like, new territories on the horizon. So hopefully we can just get back to where we were and start, you know, taking on these new places, new ventures. But yeah, I'm pretty positive about it all, as long as these people are still keen. I think regards formats, I think what Barry done when he come in was amazing. You know, got everyone absolutely buzzing again, loving snooker. But I think now we've got to the stage we're at in terms of the standard of the tour, the players on the tour. I think now is the time to maybe take another look at it and sort of maybe change, not all the tournaments, but definitely some, go back to a sort of tiered system. I think a nice mix of tournaments would be good. Because my argument about that is, you know, the biggest tournament we play is played under a tiered structure. So what's the point of having an open draw format if you're not going to use it in the biggest, most lucrative tournament we play in? So if it's good enough for the World Championship, it should be good enough for other tournaments. Yeah,
sure. Yeah, I understand that. That makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned the pandemic, and it's almost like the elephant in the room not to refer to it. But I mean, how have you found that then over the last kind of personally and professionally over the last year, kind of 15 months or so?
Personally, it didn't really affect me that much. You know, where I live, it's we're not in a big city or anything like that. So obviously, restricted to what we could do. It was limited, but you know, we've got access to a nice garden, and the kids are like, you know, they've plenty to do at home. So on a personal level, it wasn't too bad. But on a professional level, I struggled. You know, I've always been a player that's in between matches, in between like days off and stuff. I've always been in and around the players' lounge. I've always been out watching snooker. You know, I'm not one for sitting in my room watching box set after box set. And I just found the matches tough. I found filling in the time between matches really tough. And also with it being in Milton Keynes, which was a absolute godsend to the snooker tour. You know, God knows what would happen without Milton Keynes, but because it's only an hour drive away for me, it never really felt like I was going to a snooker tournament, you know, because I didn't have to stay the night, I didn't have to prepare properly. And I was literally like, it was almost as if I was going to Cambridge to have a practice with someone. And it took a little while. It took me a little while to get my head around that. You know, I turned up at a few tournaments and basically just got my cue out and went at a game. And then in a best of 7, you know, 2-0 down, 2-1 down. You think, oh, I could be getting knocked out of the British Open here or the English Open, and without actually giving it the credit it deserved. So you know, I changed it a little bit. Come to the UK, I sort of changed my approach. I went a couple of days before and sort of hated being in the hotel doing nothing, but at least I felt like I was at a tournament, and it sort of helped a little bit. But yeah, on a snooker level, I didn't really enjoy last season, but just grateful to have the opportunity to play, of course.
And so I think some of the players living further away have reflected on how hard that's been, really. I guess it was nice to be able to get back, as you say, but not much fun for some of the guys on the tour, I suppose. And how was it, having the kind of, not having the fans there and having the setup? But did you miss that? I'm presuming you're someone who does buzz a bit off having the crowd there.
Yeah, no, I missed it immensely. I had many a year when I started out playing in a cubicle with no one watching. Years and years of it, and you sort of you got out of that by getting better and getting to venues. Play at every venue, all through the season. Every match you play had a crowd, whether you was on the main table or we just getting the feed from the main table.
Yeah.
Players, fans watching that, and it just created an atmosphere. And I found it difficult to get that buzz. Some of the players thrived on it. Judd Trump and Neil Robertson, they was just absolutely phenomenal last season. But other players, other players that I admire so greatly, great players like Stephen Maguire and people like that, they really struggled. And they are professional and they're great players, but you need that little bit of buzz inside you to bring the best out of you. If you go out there and just sort of go through the motions, it's unlikely it's going to happen for you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I'm taken back to when you mentioned that most memorable game, that 10-9 against Steve Davis so early in your career, and how you said about the almost the two tables going into one. Does that make a difference? Because surely I'm sure you're blocking out the crowd to some degree, but is there a bit of you thinking, oh, hang on a minute, this is the big stuff now, and I've got a lot more people watching what I'm doing?
Well, yeah, I remember it so vividly because I went to the toilet at 9-7. Steve was on the march coming back at me, and Jimmy was on the other table in the morning. So the crowd were quite noisy. Jimmy obviously fan favourite. And I come back, and I didn't have a clue what the score was on the other table. I had no idea. So I come back from the loo, and all of a sudden I've stepped out, and the whole arena's there. Okay, so it was two tables, but it felt like one table, and the other side, because it was, I don't know if there's probably is a rival between Jimmy White fans and Steve Davis fans. They've sort of seen the score, and basically everyone stayed to watch. And, and I just froze, completely froze, and before I knew it, it was 9 each. So yeah, the whole dynamics changed with a crowd, and bigger crowds and things like that. It's really strange what it does, especially if you're, I wouldn't say I'm like mentally weak, but I think about things, and I'm quite aware of what's going on, and it's sort of shocked me a little bit.
Yeah. What do you think about, when you sat down and you can't do anything, you're waiting for your next go, really, you're just praying that the other guy's going to mess something up? I watch some people when they sat for ages and think, are they thinking about holidays? Are they thinking about what they're going to do at the weekend, or are they kind of just thinking really closely about that game and focusing? I'm sure you must be able to drift off sometimes.
Yeah, a lot of that. I don't think anyone, if they was brutally honest with you, could say, yeah, when that's happening, I do this, because I think that changes from game to game. If you're really on it and you're feeling good and you're confident in your game and yourself, you probably do watch that guy and you watch what he's doing, and you see how the game's panning out, and you keep telling yourself, right, I'm ready. When the chance comes, I'm ready. And I've done that many a time.
Right.
Other times when it's not going so well, you just see him pot the ball and he just flicks off red. You think, oh, you lucky. And you drive yourself mad, and you think, what's the time? Am I going to miss the traffic if I get beat 4-1? So it all depends. Your state of mind on the day, and you sort of, if you're drifting in and out of concentration, it's tough out there. But other days, like I say, you're just watching and you just can't wait to get back to the table. You wish. Thing is, you don't actually know what is going so well for you. You come off the table and you've won, and you can't really think, oh, I've done that, I'm going to do that again tomorrow. It doesn't really work like that. It's all instincts really, and how your mind is on the day. Yeah,
and of course there's another player, isn't there? So even with the best laid plans, another player is going to mess them up at times and do stuff you either didn't think they'd do, or they're putting you in a position it's not one you like being in. So
and everyone's different. Because I think I'm playing the same club as Neil Robertson. I've seen him grow from just this young, skinny, ginger kid that could pot a few balls to this tall, blonde superstar. And I've asked him when he started to win tournaments regularly, and I've said, what are you thinking? You know, when you got the chance to like clear up in a decider, 40 gun, what are you thinking? And he says, don't know, just want to just clear up and just like, you know, just lift the tray. I'm thinking, you're not nervous. And I've asked him, but he's completely different. You know, he's just ice runs through his veins when it's like really nervous. You know, I said to him, "Do you not shake? You're not getting nervous?" No. So I don't know whether that's like a little bit of luck or if that's just hard work, working on your mental state or not. I don't know. It just goes to show that everyone's personality and temperament is different.
Yeah, I think that's what Oliver said the other day over lines when he was talking about Judd Trump, because I think they're good mates, and he was saying that once Judd started winning tournaments, he just strutted around with confidence, and to a point that other players would start missing shots against him because of the way he carried himself.
That is an absolute fact. You know, Stephen Hendry, he basically, not that he needed it, but he basically had a frame start, and you know that's the other advantage of being one of the best players in the world. You know, Judd Trump and Neil Robertson, they are the best players in the world. There's no getting away from it. But you only ever play them players on their TV table. You know, I'm not saying they wouldn't win if they had to go on table 6 for the first 3 or 4 rounds, but they would definitely find it tougher. Not that their level would drop, but their opponent's level would definitely be higher. Because they're more comfortable in them surroundings. They haven't got the intimidation of the crowd, the cameras. So, but you, like I say, that's no sour grapes. You earn that right. You know, you have to win many tournaments to get that privilege of being on table 1 every time you get your cue out. Yeah,
no, that sounds something that we've been. It's funny because there's parallels with the game. I'm going to refer back occasionally to the league that we play in, just because that's where this is all from, really. But you know, people get nervous in that because it's that thing of it's different. The hand-eye coordination. I'm not really a big gamer, but I like the tactical side of it, and I've always liked snooker games. So I'm not big into games, but you really do kind of try and outwit the other guy. You're trying to think about where the weaknesses are. You know, they don't like it when you play nice safety and they leave you open and they can't get out of it and stuff like that. But actually what you said earlier was about centuries and how there's a lot more now than even there was years ago. And that's kind of the same in this game. I mean, you know, you get extra ranking points for centuries, and there's matches where they're playing 4 frames and 3 of the frames have got centuries in them. And you're just thinking, flipping out, to get to that level, you're going to have to be really good at opening the pack and being quite bold, really.
Yeah, well, that's pretty true reflection of today's snooker. You know, when I was sort of starting to climb the rankings and I got myself in the top 32, top 16, you know, there was the 100 century club. You know, people have had 100 centuries. That was quite lucrative, quite hard to get in. But now, you know, Neil Robertson and Judd Trump make 100 in a season.
Yeah,
and like 100 at the moment, it's like the 200. If you can get to 200 centuries in your career, that's a pretty good target. But it's going up and up and up and up. You know, I'm a decent sort of century break maker. I make my fair share. I think I'm over 300 now. So I'm in sort of like higher club. But you know, if we have this conversation again in 10 years' time, the benchmark will probably be near 500. Who knows? Because you know, players are making. There's a lot of players a season now making 40, 50 a season, and they're not, you know, they're great players, but they're not necessarily winning everything like you'd expect, making that many centuries a season. So the standard's just going up. You know, it's very rare you see like a best of 7 now where there's not a century involved, or at least like a couple of 70s or 80s. You know, so the game's really developed.
Yeah, well, why do you think that is? Because I guess that unless the pockets are wider, the table and the game are roughly the same.
See, that's another conversation. You go on some of the websites, some of the social media channels, and people always talk about how big the pockets are, and it's not true. It's just the level is just so good now. You know, and we do get the advantage of playing on brand new cloths, so the odd one does slide in, but no, the pockets are smaller now than when I first started out, far tighter. But the conditions are better, so you know, one plays off against the other. But I don't know, maybe when I was, I keep going back to when I was growing up. When I was growing up, people like Terry Griffiths, Cliff Thorburn, Ray Reardon, Jimmy White, these sort of players, these were the players we watched on TV. So we learned to play very early on by watching them. Yeah. The youngsters today, they learn by watching Judd Trump and Neil Robertson and Ronnie O'Sullivan, and all they do is make under break. Yeah. So where we learned to play clever little cannons, to develop 2 or 3 reds and make a 50 and learn a good safety game. Yeah. They're just learning how to go into the pack and clear up.
Yeah.
So the games, you know, how they see the game is very different to how we see the game when we was learning.
Yeah, yeah. And one, just to ask you something, bring you back a little bit, because Daniel, one of the guys who plays in our league, he was interested. He had a few questions for you. And one of them we've touched on a little bit, but he was asking about the Masters actually, and he was talking about the semi-final. If you think back to that, 2017, he was talking about Barry Hawkins, that game, and that comeback, and he just said that was such an epic performance. And do you, you know, when you think back to it, what was that again, the mental strength coming through? I mean, you showed real resilience to turn that around.
Yeah, I don't really know why, but I was, you know, Barry's probably, you know, one of my best friends on the tour, you know, really good close friends, and it was as nice as it is to play someone like in the semi-final. You know, one of us is going to be in the final. It's a bit one of them horrible ones, but I just remember being outplayed by him. You know, he's such a solid player, and he doesn't sort of make mistakes. He doesn't do anything fancy, but it's just so economical the way he plays. You know, he just wins frames, and I just can't hold him today. He's just too strong. And then there was a moment in the match, I needed a snooker, I think, at 5-2. It looked like I was out 6-2. And I got it, and I won the frame. It was a real momentum changer, because I don't like talking bad about any other player, but Barry, at that point, he'd had a few like matches he lost, which he just couldn't lose. You know, he lost from 5-0 up against Nigel Bond. A couple of others, he'd lost a couple that, you know, he just had no way he could lose them. And I just thought to myself, right, maybe that is the moment that swings it. And I just remember like just digging in and trying not to make it easy for him, making it work for everything. And then, I ended up coming out a 6-5 winner, even though I think in the decider he was a bit unlucky. He got in first, and he was unlucky not to break the balls and go on to win in one visit. So, I think it was, but sometimes, you know, as well as you play, sometimes you need things to go your way. And a couple of little things at the right time went my way that night.
And you had a good comeback, and also you played Ronnie in the final. But I mean, how would you describe playing him? I mean, that's a mystery to anybody watching. How is that?
That's I don't think that's my worst defeat, because it's Ronnie O'Sullivan. You're not expected to beat Ronnie O'Sullivan in the final. But the way the match panned out, it was a tough one, because I started off so well. I was 4-1 up, and there was 8 frames the first session, and I was playing really strong. You know, Ronnie was, at the time, he was a little bit hit and miss mentally. You know, you didn't really know what he was going to get. And I could see he was not enjoying it. You know, it wasn't the way he expected just to go on and just blast me. Like, I think the year before he beat Barry 10-1. I think before that he beat someone else 10-3, you know, Selby or someone. So I think that was how it sort of like played out in his head, and it wasn't going to plan. And I slipped up. I should have been at least 5-3, probably 6-2. We finished 4-4. And I remember thinking, I went back to my room with my missus, and my dad was there, and I said, I feel good, I fancy it. If I can start again like that. But cut a long story short, I come out to play the evening session, and I stood at the top of the stairs, and they called my name, and I've never experienced anything like it. This whole thing come over me, this sense of nerve. It was the loudest reception I've ever had. It was full up, 2,000 people in Ali Pali.
Wow.
I wasn't ready for it. And I managed to get down the stairs without tumbling. And I was just absolutely just so nervous. And it took me three games before I could even think of playing a good shot. And Ronnie won the first 4 that night to 8-4. And then I sort of relaxed at the interval then, like almost basically because it was over. I got myself back into it. I think I got back to 9-7, I think. And I sort of put a fight on at the end. But that first 4 frames was the most nervous I've ever been as a professional, I think.
Did you feel tight? You know, I'm wondering how that manifests physically. I guess you feel tight, don't you?
I was just so nervous, and I just felt every time I played a safety shot or a bad shot or even a good shot, that it felt like 1,998 people were shouting, "Come on, Ronnie!" And I just and when I was at the table, I sort of could hear what was going to happen. I was going to hear that I was going to miss the black, and they was going to go, "Ooh!" And I was playing this over in my head as I was playing, and it was just the most horrible feeling ever. And I went to the interval, and I was just like, "Come on!" I could have done an interval after the first frame, really. You know, could have relaxed, but I never got a chance to relax. He played well and just completely put me under it. The crowd was just on top of me. I just didn't relax at all. But that's experience. You know, even though I've been a pro 25 years, I'd never experienced that before. So when people talk about you need to get experience, that's the sort of thing they're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. But it also sounds like you felt you could get under his skin a bit when he wasn't blowing you away early on. There was something about you could frustrate him as well.
Yeah, because we don't, you know, Ronnie, to me, Ronnie's the greatest player that's ever lived. Whether we ever see anyone get to that level again, I don't know. Maybe not in my lifetime. But one thing with Ronnie, even though, like, you know, my record says different, I think it's like 14-2 head to head, but you never know. You know, if he doesn't start well or he misses a few balls, you just never know what's going to happen with him.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it was an opportunity because I was playing good at the start and I didn't capitalise, you know, and you just don't know. If I go into that evening session 6-2, you don't know if he's going to come out all guns blazing or if he's going to just roll over and think, sod it, I've lost now, so can't be bothered. So it was an opportunity missed, but on the balance of play, he won fair and square in the end. He played well in the evening, put me under pressure, but you know, Masters final didn't come along very often. It was probably, you know, one that got away maybe.
Yeah, and I should really just talk to you about 2015 instead and Bangkok. That's a better memory to keep, isn't it, really? And in terms of the punditry, that's the other bit that you're obviously getting much more involved in than you have been for a few years. I mean, is that something you can see a future in and you're enjoying?
I'd like to. I would like to sort of, you know, have that as a sort of like fall back on once the playing side finishes, as well as like getting my teeth stuck into grassroots snooker or even getting on the board and trying to, like, you know, keep improving the professional game. I'd like to be involved in somehow, and if I could do that as well as sort of commentate or pundit, I'd love to. I don't, you know, you get asked a lot, especially like where I live and stuff, what you're going to do when you finish tonight. The answer is don't know. I went to college and got A levels and this, that, and the other, but I've never, you know, wouldn't know where to start if I had to get a job. I've no idea. So to stay involved in snooker would be the ultimate goal. And I really enjoy it. I do enjoy the commentary. I really enjoy it. Enjoy the punditry. So if the opportunity comes along, I'll jump at it, definitely.
Yeah, and you said, well, I'm just thinking of something you said earlier. Actually, you said about liking Jimmy White in the early days and how maybe his influence with your game and you wishing away. I don't think you said it like this, but you said it almost like if it'd been someone else you like more, you might have been better. I don't know if that's how you meant it. Is that more in terms of the discipline or the way you approached the game and built your career? Just wondering more about that one.
Yeah, possibly. You know, I'm not the. I've got the rock and roll lifestyle that Jimmy White had. You know, I've not got them stories to tell. But no, I just when you hear like John Higgins and Ronnie O'Sullivan talk about their sort of role model when they was 14, 15, it was Steve Davis. You know, it was the winner. It was the, you know, it's all about winning. Whereas I saw Jimmy White and just thought people love him, whether he wins or not. You know, he's just a nice guy and he goes out and he plays entertaining snooker and he loves it, he enjoys it, he's gracious in defeat. And, you know, that was what I took from it. And also I enjoyed watching him play. So, it was more to do with that, really. You know, Steve Davis, he was just regarded as boring. We now know that he's anything but boring. At the time, he was just so, just boring. Snooker. And that wasn't me. You know, it wasn't my sort of personality. Well, we all wish we could turn the clock back, but I probably would do things differently. You know, I would devote a lot more time to practice when I was sort of like 16, 17. I sort of fell behind some of the boys that I was on a par with. I just fell behind because I probably didn't put enough work in when I was like that sort of age, and I sort of slipped behind someone like Mark King. You know, we've had very similar careers. You know, I've sort of stayed in the top 16 a bit longer and stuff like that, but he got to the top 16 way before I did. A long time before. And we was, you know, there was nothing to split us when we were like 15, 16, but he got to the top 16 years before I did. He qualified for the Crucible long before I did. You know, and I just think whether that was to do with like staying on at school and doing A levels and stuff, I don't know, but that's just one of them things. It's all done now. You know, you can't turn that back.
Yeah, no, fair enough. No, and looking ahead at the tour, I mean, obviously we're not that far away from a new season. And what's your aspirations? What do you want to do this season?
Well, my aspirations going into every season now is to like try and enjoy it. You know, the last couple have been a bit tough. Last year was very tough. I don't set any targets in terms of rankings because I've had years in the top 16. I want to stay on tour as long as I can. But I'd love to win another tournament. I'd love to win a tournament in the UK or somewhere close, you know, because we do it, ultimately we do it for ourselves, but you can't do it on your own. You've got a great support group. My mum and dad, I could never have been a snooker player without them. And I've won a few tournaments, one big one, but it was in Thailand, and as much as it wasn't a massive disappointment to me losing in the European final, it was because my dad and my brother, they flew over in the morning to watch the final.
Okay, right.
And their flight was delayed, obviously, because it was Ryanair or something. And when they got there, I was 5-0 down. So,
oh no!
So that wasn't like quite nice. I got back into it. I don't know what I lost, 9-6, I think. So I got back into it in the evening. But yeah, it would have been nice to have had the picture taken with my dad and the trophy or something. So yeah, that's always a goal, and it's still there. You look at players that win in tournaments. You wouldn't, if someone like Ali Carter or Stuart Bingham was doing this interview and they said, "Yeah, I want to win a tournament this year," no one would like laugh or frown. You'd think, yeah, it's a definite possibility. So, and we've always been on like an even thing. Stuart's nicked a couple of big ones. He's incredible. He's got what he's achieved in the game. But on terms of playing, they're the sort of people I sort of look at. Graham Brock, people like that. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them win tournaments. So. That's where I should be in my own sort of mind.
Yeah, on your dad. I guess that's the bit, isn't it? I'm always amazed when you look at it and you see players taking frames off so-called big names, but the fact is, if you can do that, then it's just turning that into enough, isn't it, to win it?
You can beat anyone. It's just doing it for a week. That's the hard bit, and it's doing it. And it does get tougher, as you get nearer the winning line. If you're not used to winning, I've had this conversation with Graham Dott. Right. We're probably we're not journeymen, we're better than journeymen. Graham Dott's a former world champion.
Yeah.
But he's won 2 ranking events in his career. One of them was the world title. I've won 1 major and a few minor.
Yeah.
And we've been around for years. We've been top players for years, but between us, we've won 3 tournaments. And it's just tough to win tournaments, you give yourself a chance, obviously, but it just goes to show, we've been around for so long, and we got 3 tournament wins between us, so it's tough.
Yeah. No, I hear it, and I mean, it's just been a really good eye into what it's like to be a pro player and on the circuit, and a lot of the stuff you said, some really good nuggets of info and your insight. I mean, you've got very clear memories of your career and different games, and it obviously sticks with you. It's really interesting. I was just going to round off really with just a little bit of quick fire, and it's not serious. It's just a little bit of this or that, and see what you think, just to get more of an idea of you as a guy, really, away from the table. So if you wouldn't just mind indulging. So the first one is, this might be close to your heart, Highbury or the Emirates?
Oh, Highbury.
I thought you might say
every day. Yeah. Forgetting tickets, the Emirates, but to watch a game of football, and we was good when we was at Highbury. So yeah, Highbury all day, every day.
Yeah. Okay. I thought that might be the case. And given where you live, you might not care about either of these, or you might have a pet lower league team. But the Posh or Cambridge United, any preference?
See now, this is a horrible question for me, because I play snooker in Cambridge. I've never played snooker in Peterborough, even though I live closer to Peterborough. And all the boys at the club obviously support Cambridge. But I would have to say I'm going to get a bit of a lash for this. But yeah, I'm Posh. The
Posh, back in the Championship.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so there'll be a lot of very happy people.
Yeah, probably barred from the club now. I'll have to see clubs in Peterborough a call and put the table in.
I can just see Barry Fry running along the touchline now, actually, just after that. This might be about style, or it might be about, them as people, but Cliff Thorburn or Alex Higgins?
Yeah, they've both got wonderful attributes. I'm going to go Alex because, you know, I think maybe, who knows, if it wasn't for Alex, we might not be having this conversation right now.
Yeah. Actually, a few people have said that, both in the league and our league, plus other people saying, you know, they don't think the game would be where it was without him. So
well, he made it probably the most popular sport in the 80s, that's for sure.
Yeah. VAR or no VAR? We're talking footy now, aren't we?
I'm going to go no VAR. I like the idea. You know, I thought it'd be good, you know, black and white for offside goals and stuff like that. But it's taken a lot of passion, a lot of emotion out of football. Yeah. You know, I love going to football matches, and the one thing you just hope happens on a football match is someone scores a goal, and they've sort of taken the passion away from that. But yeah, I'm gonna, as even though I can see what it brings, I'm gonna go no VAR.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, to be honest. Although being a Forest fan, I don't have to worry about that. Maybe one day I'll worry about it. And the last one really was just about crowd sounds or no crowd sounds, and that applies both to football, but in a way also to the snooker with the kind of the false clapping and all of that. Would you rather have had that or not had it?
I think crowd sounds work on the TV. So if there was a way that we could play snooker and just play snooker, yet whoever's got on the clap button presses it, but purely for the TV.
Right.
I like that. But if we're out there playing and someone's pressing it, and you know, sometimes they get it wrong and put it at the wrong time. But if it's only purely for the benefit of those watching on TV, then yeah, a little bit of sound, a bit of commentary, it all adds to it.
Yeah, no, that's and as you've kind of said a few times, really, that the impact of the crowd is something that does impact you as a player. So it's
definitely. Well, I worked. I didn't qualify for the Crucible, but I've done the World Championship up until the semi-final, and even to be in the commentary box and, you know, the crowd having an input in it was it was really good to see and great to have them back. Yeah, it makes such a difference. Sport is nothing without fans. You know, you can earn good money, you can be whatever you want to be, you can be famous or whatever, but sport is nothing without fans. I think we've all realised that, no matter what sport we play. I think we've appreciated that. Yeah,
brilliant. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, Joe, I'm just going to thank you, really. I mean, we'll bring it to a close, but I just want to thank you, really, on behalf of the PlayStation Snooker League and me personally. It's just been really nice getting to know you a little bit in the time that we've had. If you would, it would be nice to maybe hear from you again during the season, just to get your reflections on how you're getting on, if you fancy that.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, just give me a shout anytime. It's no big deal to me. I love to talk about snooker, and especially people that are know what they're talking about and are passionate about it. Yeah, anytime.
Brilliant. Okay, and just, you know, best of luck, really. I really hope you have a good season, and you know, me and a lot of the guys who watch this are going to follow you a lot closer, I think, because we've just had the chance to get to know you more. So just very grateful, and all the very best for the new season.
Yeah, brilliant. And just good luck to all you guys in your league, and may the best man win.
I'll pass that on. It won't be me, but yeah, thanks for that. Cheers, Joe.